Millions of Americans spend years saving for a home. But what if the real financial trap isn't renting? It's buying at the wrong time. Meet Jake and Mike. Both are 30 years old. Both live in Phoenix, Arizona. Both earn $85,000 a year. Both have spent years building savings. And both want the same thing: financial freedom. Yet one decision sends their lives in completely different directions. Jake buys a home. Mike keeps renting. 10 years later, one of them will have a higher net worth, and the winner isn't who most people expect. If you grew up in America, you've probably heard the same advice your entire life. Work hard, save money, buy a home, build wealth. It's a simple formula that has been repeated for generations. Parents tell their children. Financial commentators repeat it on television. Friends repeat it at backyard barbecues. And social media repeats it every single day. The message is always the same. Renting is throwing money away. Jake believes it. Honestly, most people do. In early 2026, Jake has finally reached a point where buying seems possible. He has saved $60,000. Mortgage lenders are willing to approve him. And after years of apartment living, he's tired of sending rent checks every month. He wants something that belongs to him. He wants stability. He wants a backyard. He wants the American dream. After months of searching Zillow listings, Jake finds a 3-bedroom home in a growing suburb outside Phoenix. The price is $450,000. It's not cheap. But everyone around him says the same thing. If you don't buy now, prices will be even higher later. That fear pushes him forward. A few weeks later, Jake signs the paperwork. The down payment drains most of his savings. The closing costs hurt more than expected. But none of that matters when he receives the keys. For the first time in his life, Jake is a homeowner. He walks through every room smiling. He imagines future family gatherings, summer cookouts, holiday decorations, and maybe most importantly, he imagines his house becoming more valuable every year. This doesn't feel like spending money. It feels like building wealth, and everyone around him agrees. His parents are proud. His coworkers congratulate him. His friends tell him he made the smart decision. Everything feels right. Meanwhile, Mike is making a decision that almost nobody understands. Instead of buying a home, he renews the lease on his apartment near downtown Phoenix. His rent isn't exactly cheap. In fact, it increases slightly when he signs the new lease. When people hear about his decision, they immediately question it. Some tell him he's wasting money. Others tell him he'll regret waiting. One friend even jokes that he's helping his landlord retire early. Mike laughs, but he doesn't change his plan. Because Mike isn't avoiding home ownership. He's simply looking at the situation differently. Instead of putting $60,000 into a down payment, he buys low-cost index funds. He keeps contributing every month. And he continues building his emergency fund. Unlike Jake, he isn't focused on owning an asset. He is focused on growing assets. To most people, the difference sounds small, but over time, it becomes enormous. Still, if you asked almost anyone who is winning at this point, they would probably choose Jake. And honestly, they would have a good argument. Jake owns a home. Mike owns a lease agreement. Jake is building equity. Mike is paying rent. The comparison seems obvious. For the first year, Jake absolutely loves homeownership. He paints the walls whatever color he wants. He upgrades the kitchen lighting. He plants trees in the backyard. Every improvement feels meaningful because the property belongs to him. No landlord approval, no lease restrictions, no worries about being asked to move. Just freedom. And for a while, everything works exactly as expected. Then, reality starts arriving. One summer afternoon, Phoenix temperatures rise above 110 degrees. Jake's air conditioning system stops working. At first, he assumes it won't be a big deal. Then the repair estimate arrives. Several $1,000s, gone. Not invested, not building equity, not increasing the home's value. Just gone. A few months later, his property taxes increase. Then insurance costs rise. Then his homeowners association raises fees. None of these expenses are shocking on their own, but together, they begin changing the math. For the first time, Jake realizes something important. The mortgage isn't the only cost of owning a home. It's just the beginning. Meanwhile, Mike receives a completely different surprise. A recruiter contacts him about a position in Dallas, Texas. The new role offers more responsibility, more career growth, and a salary increase of nearly $15,000 per year. For Mike, the opportunity is exciting, and because he's renting, accepting it is surprisingly easy. His lease ends in a few months. He isn't tied to a property. He isn't calculating commissions or closing costs. He simply says yes. A few months later, he's living in Dallas. And that's when the story becomes interesting. Because Jake's house is giving him stability, while Mike's flexibility is creating opportunity. At first, neither advantage seems more valuable than the other, but over the next decade, that difference will change everything. And by the time this story ends, one of them will discover a truth about wealth that most Americans never see coming. 3 years pass. Jake and Mike are both doing well, but they're doing well in very different ways. Jake's life has become predictable. Every month, the mortgage payment leaves his account. Every month, a small portion of that payment turns into equity. His neighborhood continues growing. New restaurants appear. A new Costco opens nearby. Property values keep climbing. And every time Jake checks Zillow, the estimated value of his home seems a little higher. For the first time, he feels like he's getting ahead. The decision to buy appears smarter every month. His coworkers talk about rising home prices. His friends discuss how much their houses are worth. Even the local news keeps reporting on Phoenix's booming real estate market. Everything seems to confirm what Jake already believes: buying was the right move. Meanwhile, Mike's life looks less impressive from the outside. He still rents. He still doesn't own a home. And there are no dramatic headlines celebrating the growth of his investment account. Nobody at work asks how much his index funds increased this year. Nobody posts screenshots of his portfolio on social media. But something important is happening behind the scenes. His new Dallas job exceeds expectations. The company grows quickly. His performance stands out, and before long, he receives another promotion. His income rises again. The raise isn't life-changing overnight, but Mike does something most people don't. Instead of upgrading his lifestyle, he upgrades his investments. Every raise increases the amount he invests. Every bonus goes partly into his portfolio, month after month, year after year, without interruption. And that's where the gap slowly begins forming, not because Mike is smarter, not because Jake is making mistakes, but because compound growth rewards consistency. The funny thing about compound growth is that it looks boring in the beginning. The first few years feel slow, almost disappointing. Then suddenly it doesn't, and that's exactly what's happening to Mike. His investment account starts growing faster than his contributions alone can explain. The market is doing what it has historically done for generations. Not perfectly, not every year, but over long periods of time, it grows. Meanwhile, Jake discovers another side of homeownership. Maintenance never really ends. One year it's landscaping, the next year it's exterior paint, then a water heater replacement, then appliance repairs, then roof maintenance. None of these expenses are disasters, but they never completely stop. And every dollar spent maintaining the property is a dollar that can't be invested elsewhere. Again, this doesn't mean buying was wrong. It simply means homeownership is more expensive than many people expect. And that reality rarely appears in the conversations people have about building wealth. Most people compare rent payments to mortgage payments. Very few compare rent payments to mortgage payments plus taxes, plus insurance, plus maintenance, plus repairs, plus opportunity cost. That's where the math becomes complicated. And the complicated part is usually where the truth lives. By year 5, something dramatic happens. Phoenix home prices explode. Suddenly, Jake's house is worth far more than when he bought it. Thousands of homeowners across Arizona experience the same thing. The market becomes one of the hottest in the country. The value of Jake's property rises faster than he ever imagined. For the first time, it feels like he hit the jackpot. Friends congratulate him. Family members tell him he made a brilliant decision. Even people who once questioned the housing market start praising homeownership again. Jake looks at the numbers and smiles. His net worth has increased substantially. And honestly, he deserves credit. Buying the house required courage. Holding it through uncertainty required patience. The appreciation is real, the equity is real, the wealth is real. At this point, most viewers probably think the story is over. Jake wins. Homeownership wins. Case closed. But that's exactly where most people fall into the trap. Because wealth isn't measured halfway through the game. It's measured at the end. And while Jake's house is appreciating rapidly, Mike's story is entering its most important chapter. The investments he started years ago are becoming larger. The contributions are becoming larger. And most importantly, his career opportunities continue expanding. One afternoon, another recruiter reaches out. This time the opportunity is even bigger. A leadership role, a larger company, a significantly higher salary. The position is located in Nashville, Tennessee. For Mike, the decision is familiar. He evaluates the opportunity, negotiates compensation, and accepts. Within weeks, he's moving again. Some people would view that constant movement as a disadvantage. And in some ways it is. But financially, Flexibility is creating opportunities that are difficult to ignore. Each move increases his income. Each increase boosts his investments. Each year compounds the previous one. Meanwhile, Jake remains in Phoenix. His life is stable, his community is familiar, his house continues appreciating, and stability has value. A lot of value. But stability also comes with trade-offs, because every decision opens some doors while closing others. Neither Jake nor Mike realizes it yet, but their financial futures are now being shaped far more by those trade-offs than by the original rent versus buy decision. And when year 10 finally arrives, the result will surprise almost everyone. By year 8, both men look successful. Jake has built substantial equity. Mike has built a substantial investment portfolio. Neither one is struggling. Neither one regrets his decision. And that's what makes this story interesting. Because most financial debates are presented as if one side is completely right and the other side is completely wrong. But real life rarely works that way. Jake isn't failing. Mike isn't failing. Both are winning, just in different ways. Jake's house has become the centerpiece of his financial life. The neighborhood has matured. New businesses have moved in. Schools have improved. Property values remain strong. And every year that passes increases his ownership stake. When Jake looks at his home, he doesn't just see a building. He sees security. He sees stability. He sees something he can pass on one day. There's real value in that. The kind of value that doesn't always show up on a spreadsheet. Meanwhile, Mike's life looks very different. His investment portfolio continues growing. His Nashville position leads to another raise. His savings rate increases, and for the first time, the gains from his investments begin exceeding what he's personally contributing. That's when compounding becomes visible. For years, Mike felt like he was pushing a heavy boulder uphill. Now it feels like the boulder is rolling on its own. The portfolio starts accelerating, and suddenly, the money he invested years ago is producing meaningful growth by itself. This is the stage most people never reach because they quit too early. They want results after 6 months, after 1 year, maybe 2. But wealth often rewards patience more than brilliance, and Mike has been patient. Still, the outcome remains unclear. Because Jake's home continues appreciating, and appreciation is powerful, very powerful. A single strong housing market can create life-changing gains. That's why so many Americans believe real estate is the greatest wealth-building tool ever created. Sometimes they're right, but sometimes they miss an important detail. A rising home value only becomes useful if it improves your financial position. And that's where things get complicated. Because while Jake's house has increased dramatically in value, his expenses have also increased. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, everything costs more than it did 10 years earlier. The home has made him wealthier, but it has also demanded more cash along the way. Mike's investments, on the other hand, require almost no maintenance, no roof replacements, no leaking pipes, no broken appliances, no emergency calls. Different assets, different challenges, different rewards. And now, after 10 years, it's finally time to compare the results. Jake sits down and calculates his net worth, home value, remaining mortgage balance, savings, retirement accounts, everything. The result is impressive, much better than he imagined when he first signed the paperwork years ago. The decision to buy absolutely helped him build wealth. There's no denying that. Then Mike does the same thing. Investment accounts, retirement accounts, savings, everything. The result surprises him, and it surprises almost everyone else. Mike finishes slightly ahead, not dramatically ahead, not enough to make Jake look foolish. Not enough to prove renting is superior. Just ahead. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because if buying a home automatically created the most wealth, Mike shouldn't have won. But he did. Not because renting is better. Not because homeownership is bad. Not because real estate failed. Mike won because of what happened after the housing decision. That's the part most people ignore. The house wasn't the deciding factor. The behavior was. When Mike received raises, he invested them. When opportunities appeared, he pursued them. When his income increased, he kept building assets. Year after year, without stopping. If Mike had rented and spent all his extra money on lifestyle upgrades, expensive vacations, and new cars, the outcome would have been completely different. Jake would have won easily. And that's the point. The winner wasn't determined by rent versus buy. The winner was determined by financial habits. That's the trap nobody talks about. Millions of Americans believe buying a home automatically creates wealth. As if the moment you get the keys, financial success becomes inevitable. But reality is more complicated. A home can help build wealth. A home can protect wealth. A home can absolutely be one of the best financial decisions a person ever makes. But it isn't magic, and neither is renting. Because renting doesn't make you poor, and buying doesn't make you rich. The habits that follow those decisions matter far more. Income growth, investing, saving, managing debt, staying consistent. Those are the forces that quietly shape financial futures. Not headlines, not social media opinions, and not one-size-fits-all advice. For some people, buying a home is exactly the right move. For others, renting while aggressively investing may create a better outcome. The challenge is figuring out which path fits your situation, not somebody else's. Because the most expensive financial mistakes often happen when people follow advice without understanding the trade-offs behind it. Jake and Mike started in the same place. Same age, same income, same savings, same goal. 10 years later, both became wealthier. Both made good decisions. Both built successful financial lives. But one built slightly more wealth. Not because he rented, not because the other bought, because he remained consistent long after the original decision was made. And that's the lesson. The question isn't whether everyone should rent. The question isn't whether everyone should buy. The real question is what happens after you make that choice. Because wealth isn't built by a mortgage, and it isn't destroyed by rent. Wealth is built by thousands of small decisions repeated over years. The raises you invest, the opportunities you take, the expenses you avoid, the discipline you maintain when nobody is watching. That's what separates people who build wealth from people who only talk about it. So if you're trying to decide between renting and buying, don't ask which option automatically makes people rich. That's the wrong question. Ask which option gives you the best chance of building the future you want. Because the trap nobody talks about isn't renting. And it isn't buying. It's believing that one answer works for everyone. And that belief has quietly cost millions of Americans far more money than they ever realized.